Okay, welcome guys to another session of Make Shabbat Great Again. I know it's been a while since we met. So this week we're going to focus a little bit on the Parsha and a little bit more on Chanukah, which is coming up. And I know that next week a lot of you guys are testing. So I figured this would be the best week to do it. Okay, so first of all, let me share something from the Parsha with you guys. And here we go. Okay, so this week is Parshat Vayishlach, and we have the epic story of Yaakov returning back home to Israel, meeting up with his brother Esav, who he had been separated from for many years. Now, as you guys know, Yaakov took the blessings which Isaac wanted to give to the elder son. Yaakov technically was the one who was worthy of them, and he got the blessings, and Esav was really upset. Yaakov runs away. He goes out of Israel. He leaves Israel. He goes to a place called Haran, where his uncle lives. He ends up marrying his cousins, and he stays there for years. He builds up a huge, large family, and now he comes home. And when he comes home, he is met with Esav and an army of people. And Yaakov says a prayer there. So I want to look at this prayer and focus on it. And here. So it says, and Yaakov said, God of Abraham, God of Yitzchak, God of Yitzchak. He can't say God of Yaakov because that's himself. So he says, you've been so good to me. I've been unworthy of all the kindness you've given me. You know, I left alone, and now I've crossed over the Jordan River with two camps of people, meaning his family. And he says, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. Save me, please, from the hands of my brother, from the hands of Esav. Because I fear him. Maybe he'll strike me down, mothers and children alike. So there's a very strange phrase that we just read, because he says, save me from my brother, from Esav. He's talking to Hashem. Hashem knows who Esav is. Now, Hashem knows everything that we articulate in tefillah, and that's a topic unto itself. Why we need to verbalize our tefillah if Hashem knows exactly what we're thinking. That's its own topic. And it's dealt with actually in the Code of Jewish Law. It talks about why we're supposed to verbalize our tefillah. But to say two different expressions about the same person, save me from my brother, save me from Esav, is extraneous. It's totally extra. What would possibly be the purpose of this? So there's a very famous and poignant answer to this given by a great rabbi from Europe who was known as the Beis Halevi, and his name was Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik. His descendant, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, was a very, very famous rabbi in Yeshiva University in New York. And he says the following. He says that when we encounter anti-Semitism, there's really two fears that we have to take into account. One of them is hatred towards us. That's Esav. Esav represents hatred. He wanted to kill us. Those of you who were in my philosophy class last year know we spoke about anti-Semitism and the reason for it, the biblical approach to it. That's one side of it, is the hatred. But then there's another equally dangerous fear, which is my brother, when he acts to me with love. And that is the danger of being assimilated and losing our value system because we get too friendly with the other nations around us. Now, most of Jewish history, that was not a problem. There was no fear of that. First of all, they hated our guts. Second of all, the Jewish people were ghettoized and despised. But all of that changed in the French Revolution. After the French Revolution, there was extreme liberalism, and Jewish people were now allowed to join the army. They were allowed to have any government official in Western, have any government appointment in Western Europe. And certainly in America, we experience freedom like we've never had any parallel before in the Western world today. And there's a danger, just like there's a danger with the hatred of other nations, there's also a danger when they come to love us too much, because then there's a danger of assimilation and we could start losing our own value system. And so therefore, it's always been the approach of Jews throughout the ages to keep a friendly relationship with other cultures, at the same time a certain distance so that you keep your own belief system solid and not threatened. And actually there was a whole uproar recently. I don't remember exactly how long ago it was, but there was a statement made by the Israeli education minister, whose name is Rafi Peretz. And he said that the amount of intermarriage of American Jewry is a second Holocaust. That's what he said. We've lost many more people to intermarriage than we have to the Holocaust. And the truth is 58% of American Jews intermarry into the non-Jewish world. And when he said that, it caused a whole uproar. People were insulted because so many American Jews are married to Gentiles. What's the point? What's really so bad about it? The issue is that it causes a losing of your own value system very, very quickly. And if not your generation, the next generation. If not that generation, the generation following. And therefore, on the one hand, people say, oh, do you think you're better because you keep a certain distance? That's what Haman said. It's exactly what Haman said. When Haman complained to Achashverosh about the Jewish people, right? Every anti-Semite comes in their own form. Haman said they're mufuzar, mufarad mikol amim. They're separate, they're distinct from all the nations. B'datem shonot, and their laws are different. So it's lo shavel hanicham. It's not worth your while to keep these people around. So yeah, we always have kept separate to an extent. As a matter of fact, the very first generation of Jews who went down to Egypt, which was there were only 70 people who went originally down to Egypt in the Egyptian exile, right? We came out a few million strong. But when we went down at the end of Bereshit, it was Jacob's family of 70 people. They took active steps to prevent assimilation. What steps did they take? Number one, it says in Parshat Vayishlach that they sent Judah ahead, Yehuda ahead, lehorot lefanav, to establish a teaching, like Horah, like Moreh. What does that mean? He set up a school before the rest of the family got there, because the greatest barrier to assimilation is Jewish education. And so before the family even got there, he made sure a Jewish school was set up. Another barrier they set up is Yosef tells his brothers when they get to Egypt, he says, make sure you tell Pharaoh you're shepherds. Why? Because the Egyptians hate shepherds and they'll keep you separate. They'll keep you apart. Do any of you guys want to take a stab at why the Egyptians hated shepherds? What's wrong with being a shepherd that's so racist? What do you say, Aviv?
I don't know, because they're like, aren't they considered like leaders in Judaism?
Are they considered what?
Leaders?
Shepherds are leaders? Could be, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. It's possible.
Like, aren't they like, oh, yes, go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah? Who's Sarah? Oh,
I'm
my daughter. My daughter, Sarah. Oh, I didn't see her.
Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. Why do the Egyptians hate shepherds?
Because they serve sheep, and
because the Egyptians worship sheep
as animals.
Right. Very good. The Egyptians worship sheep, and they didn't like shepherds. It's like, why are you taking my God around on a leash? So Yosef said specifically, say you're shepherds. They'll give you your own area of land, which is exactly what happened. They lived in the land of Goshen. They lived separate from them. And it says they kept their Jewish names and their Hebrew language and their Jewish clothes. People think clothes are, it's all aesthetic. It's not important. It's the inside. Yeah, it's true. The inside is what counts. But the clothes are a big barrier. It's a very important thing to keep your culture is when you look different, when you have your own look. So that's just a very important idea, especially for American Jewry that comes out of this verse. Miyad achi miyad Esav. Save me from Esav, from the hatred, but also save me from my brother. Save me from his love as well. Okay. Now I want to move on to talk about Chanukah now. So Chanukah is very interesting because it's a rabbinic holiday. There are only 2 rabbinic holidays. Chanukah, and what's the other one? Suggestions. What's the other rabbinic holiday other than Chanukah?
Sukkot.
Sukkot is mentioned in the Torah at least 3 times.
Right. Purim.
Purim, that's right. You can figure it out historically because the Torah was Mount Sinai. The 10 Commandments were given in the year 2448, 50 days after we came out of Egypt. We were in the desert for 40 years, and that's when the Torah was completed. So from 2448 until 2488. Now, the Purim story happened about 900 years after that. Okay, the Purim story happened between the first and second temples when we were in exile in Persia. And then the Chanukah story happened even later than that. It happened during the period of the second temple. We were in Israel when the Greeks took control. So it's a rabbinic holiday. Now, the first thing we need to understand about a rabbinic holiday is what on earth is the idea of any rabbinic holiday? Because isn't the Torah perfect already? Whatever idea or message or lesson that Hashem wants me to get from this holiday, from any holiday, should have been given in the Torah already. And if it wasn't given in the Torah, then that means whatever we need to get wasn't lacking. The Torah is completely perfect. Everything is there already. So let's say, for example, Pesach, we're supposed to get the idea of what true freedom is. So, okay, Hashem says, here's what you have to do to get that idea. You have to go through certain rituals and you have to read certain things and you'll get that idea. Well, whatever we're supposed to get out of, my daughter's telling me to move back. Okay. Whatever we're supposed to get out of Chanukah, if it was so important, then why didn't Hashem himself tell it to us? How do we explain any rabbinic holiday? So this is the way that my rabbi explained it to us many, many years ago. And then recently I was listening to a CD. He's not alive anymore. I was listening to a CD and I heard him say it again. So not that he said it again. He's not alive, but he said it on the CD. Okay. So the idea is as follows. The Torah is giving me instructions like for a healthy person. And the rabbis are giving instructions for sick people. What does that mean? Okay, it's like a healthy person doesn't need vitamins. You don't need to go to your doctor and tell me, give me a regimen of vitamins to take. Because if you're eating properly, you're getting the nutrients you need out of your food. If you have the right balance of food, you're getting what you need. But for somebody who is not eating what they're supposed to, they need vitamins to supplement what they're supposed to be getting. That's what the holidays are like. The biblical holidays are for someone who's living in a normal world, in a normal time. Here's what you need. But for the rabbis, the Torah is perfect, but people are not perfect. People are not perfect. And therefore, things happened in history that made us less than perfect. And the rabbis kicked in then and they said, here's what we need for our generation. That's the idea of any rabbinic law. The Torah says to listen to the rabbis of the Supreme Court when they make a law, because not that the Torah is not perfect, but people are not perfect. And therefore, each generation requires their own laws for that purpose. Okay, so what exactly happened by Purim and Chanukah that the rabbis had to stick their foot in and say, some things, this is an imperfect world, they need our guidance. So let's first talk about Purim. Before Purim, we had the first temple. The first temple, a person was able to feel Hashem's revelation anytime they visited. The ark was there, and there was constantly miracles happening, and a person felt Hashem's presence. Whereas when the first temple was destroyed, that was over. We no longer had open miracles. We no longer were able to feel Hashem in our presence. So we lived in a period of what's called Hester Panim. Hester Panim means a hidden face of Hashem. Hashem is hidden to us. Yes, if you take philosophy class, you'll see Hashem through nature. You'll see Hashem through the teleological approach. You'll see Hashem through the moral approach. But you have to look for it, and you have to dig. But during the times of the temple, it wasn't that way. Hashem was openly revealed. Purim comes along. The Jews are sent into exile. It's the first time they have to relate to Hashem in a completely different way, with Hashem being hidden from us. And so that's exactly what happened in the Purim story. In the Purim story, was there, Isaac, in the Purim story, the whole story of Megillat Esther, Achashverosh and Haman and Esther and Mordechai, was there any open miracle that took place? The answer is no. Oh, hi, Brucha haba, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. The answer, you're welcome to stay. The answer is there was no open miracle. The rabbis established it as a holiday to imbue within us the idea of relating to Hashem when he's hidden. That's what Purim is all about. And actually, that's what Esther's name is. Esther's name means Haster. Esther means hidden. It refers to that. Chanukah was another story. Chanukah was the first time in history that a nation made decrees against religious observance. Anyone before that wanted to kill our bodies. Okay, Purim, they were going after our bodies. They wanted to kill man, woman, and child. Haman. He was a Nazi. Not so on Chanukah. Chanukah, they didn't want to kill us. They wanted to Hellenize us. They wanted to change our religion around, and they wanted us to accept their Greek way of life. That's called Hellenism. I'm sure you guys heard about that in Jewish history. And most people fell to Hellenism, like we were just speaking about assimilation. So the rabbis of the time said, the Maccabees at the time, they said, you know what? A life without meaning is not worth living at all. And therefore they were willing to risk their lives, and the few fought the many, and they had no chance against the Greek army. You're talking about a very small number of Jewish guerrilla fighters. They had no chance. But they said, you know what? If we die, we die, but we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to live a life which has no meaning, because they're not letting us learn Torah. They're not letting us keep Shabbat. They're not letting us do circumcision. So therefore, that became, the rabbis wanted to imbue that into us, into our psyches, and that's what Chanukah is all about. Chanukah is about have meaning in life or don't bother living. There's no point. Be willing to give it all over if you have no meaning in life. And again, that's what I mean by people became sick, in the sense that there were the people, the Greeks were the ones who made these rules against our religion. And since that was the first time that happened in history, that's why that became a holiday. That's the idea of the rabbinic holiday of Chanukah. So the message we have to take it with ourselves for Chanukah is latkes are very nice, and dreidels are very nice, and donuts are very nice. The point is to realize what they stood for. What do the Maccabees stand for? They weren't a bunch of muscular people. They were a bunch of Torah scholars. And they said we have to have a life of meaning. Otherwise, there's no point. We're willing to give our lives up. Okay. I want to do a few laws of Chanukah. Usually we were doing laws of Shabbat. I want to do a few laws of Chanukah, and then we're going to end with a story. So I'm going to share a document. Let's talk about some of the more common things. Okay. Now, Chanukah, there's actually no law to have a festive meal. You don't need to have any Chanukah party. Unlike Purim, where you have to have a festive meal. What's the difference? The difference is, as we just said before, Purim, they were going after our bodies. So we celebrate with our bodies. Chanukah, they were going after our souls. So we celebrate with our souls. We celebrate by singing Hallel on Chanukah. We celebrate with our souls. Okay. Now, there's a custom to eat dairy on Chanukah. Very quickly, that's because there was a woman named Yehudit. Yes, Sarah, why do we eat dairy?
because she went to Hellenus or whatever his name was, and she gave him milk and cheese
And
and then he asked for a drink, so she gave him wine, and then she chopped off his head and put it on a stick, and she walked around with it.
yeah, it was a kebab. Right. So this woman Yehudit was actually killed the general, and the way she did it is she gave him like my daughter said, cheeses are very salty, I guess, and so it made him thirsty. She gave him some wine, he fell asleep, and then she stabbed him. So there's a custom to have dairy foods at least once during Chanukah. And now let's talk about the candles. The minimum amount of candles you need. People do not realize this. The minimum candle. Oh, very good. 1 candle per household. I don't care if you're Hasidic and you have 1,000 kids. The minimum you need is only 1 candle for the whole household. However, the Talmud says that you could beautify your mitzvah by having every member of the household light candles. Not an obligation, but it beautifies the mitzvah. And you can make it even more beautiful by adding a candle each night. So why by Hanukkah do we have a special mitzvah of beautifying the mitzvah? Because there's a reason behind it. The bottom line is the original miracle happened in a way in which the Maccabees tried to beautify the mitzvot. Because they didn't need to light that candle, found that oil. They went out of their way to make it more beautiful. Okay, now where should the candles be placed? So in the Talmudic
window.
Yeah, in Talmudic times they were placed outside by the courtyard, so as many people can see as possible, because you want to spread the miracle. Today we don't place them outside. It's dangerous and it's windy and it's dangerous and it's probably against the law too. So we do it inside in a safe place near a window. I personally know a family, my mom's close friend. I personally know a family who burnt their entire house down because the candles were near the window shades. So if it's not safe to put them where you put them, forget about putting them near the window. You put them on the table. Okay. I literally remove the window shades from the window before Hanukkah. I take the whole thing off. Just so I'm so frightened. So when is it supposed to be lit? It's supposed to be lit after dark, and they're supposed to last half an hour past nighttime. Okay? Jewish nighttime is called when 3 stars come out. Did you guys ever learn that?
So another fact, for 30 minutes after you light the candles, women aren't supposed to do like laundry and stuff.
Well, yeah, women have a custom not to work after the candles for half an hour because, again, they were the main part of the miracle. They caused the miracle by the killing of the general. Okay, so they're supposed to last half an hour into the night. And Shabbat is especially important because Friday night you're lighting your Hanukkah candles early before Shabbat when it's still light outside. You got to make sure you use something that lasts a long time, either oil, or you could use those tea lights or Shabbat candles. But if you just use those $1 wax candles, they're probably not going to last long enough into the night on a Friday. Okay, again, you don't need to have 25 of them. One person could put out 1 wax candle and you're good. You know what I mean? Those little tea candles, those little tea lights. Okay, I want to end with a story. This story, there was a great sage who passed away in the 1930s. He was known as the Chafetz Chaim, the one who desires life. Why? Because he wrote a book called Chafetz Chaim. It's a takeoff on a verse that says that someone who desires life should speak with proper speech. And he wrote a book about that. He was a really great tzaddik, righteous person. And he told the following story. One time when he was a young student, he was at the house of his rabbi, whose name was Rabbi Nachum. And they're sitting in the house, and it's Hanukkah night, and it becomes dark, and it's time to light. And he doesn't light. And the Chafetz Chaim, as a student, he didn't say anything. He's, I don't know what's going on. And then literally 3 hours passed. I mean, once it's nightfall, you're supposed to light as soon as you can. 3 hours passed, and he hadn't lit the candles. And again, the student didn't say anything. He was observing. He was like, did my rabbi forget it's Hanukkah? What's going on? And then the rabbi's wife comes home from wherever she was. And he then lights together with her. And the student then asked, he said, what's going on? Why do you do that? He said, because the Talmud says that if a person's so poor that they can only afford either Shabbat candles or Chanukah candles, you're supposed to purchase Shabbat candles. Why? Because Shabbat candles bring peace to the home. So if I saw that peace to the home takes more importance than Chanukah candles, I wanted to wait for my wife because it would bring peace to my home. She would be happy if she does it together with me instead of me waiting. And that's what he derived from the Talmud. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I want to wish you an amazing Hanukkah. Enjoy your families. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you guys
much.
for those of you who are social distancing and actually care. Have an amazing evening, guys, and a good Shabbat.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming. Thank you.